Fifth Addendum of the Miracles of Qur'an. The 10th topic of Fruits of Belief, the 11th ray, a flower of Emidah, an extremely powerful reply to objections raised against repetition in the Qur'an. My dear and loyal brothers, due to my wretched situation, this matter is confused and graceless, but I knew definitely that beneath the confused wording was a most valuable sort of miraculousness, though unfortunately I was incapable of expressing it. But however dull the wording, since it concerns the Qur'an, it is both worship in the form of reflection and the shell of a sacred, elevated, shining jewel. The diamond in the hand should be looked at, not its torn clothes. Also, I wrote it in 1 or 2 days during Ramadan while extremely ill, wretched and without food, of necessity very concisely and briefly, and including many truths and numerous proofs in a single sentence. Its deficiencies, then, should be overlooked. Footnote starts, as the 10th topic of the fruit of Denizli prison, it's a small shining flower of Emidah and of this month of Ramadan. By explaining one instance of wisdom in the repetitions of the Qur'an, it dispels the poisonous, putrid illusions of the people of misguidance. Footnote ends. My true and loyal brothers, while reading the Qur'an of miraculous exposition in Ramadan, whichever of the 33 verses I came to that in the first ray described the allusions to the Risale-i Nur, I saw that the page and story of the verse also look to the Risale-i Nur and its students to a degree, insofar as they have a share of the story, particularly the light verses in Surah Al-Nur, just as they point to the Risale-i Nur with 10 fingers, so the darkness verses following it point directly at those opposing it. These afford a further share. Quite simply, I understood that this station rises from particularity to universality, and that one part of that universality is the Risale-i Nur and its students. Indeed, in regard to the breadth, exaltedness, and comprehensiveness that the Qur'an's address receives from firstly the extensive station of the universal dominicality of the pre-eternal speaker, and from the extensive station of the one addressed in the name of mankind, indeed of all beings, and the most extensive station of all mankind's guidance in all the centuries, and from the station of the most elevated comprehensive expositions of the divine laws concerning the regulation of this world and the hereafter, the heavens and the earth, pre-eternity and post-eternity, and the dominicality of the Creator of the universe and of all beings, this address displays such an elevated miraculousness and comprehensiveness that both its apparent and simple level, which flatters the simple minds of ordinary people, the most numerous group the Qur'an addresses, and its highest level, partake of it. It is as though, addressing every age and every class of people, not as one share of the story or one lesson from an historical story, but as parts of a universal principle, it is newly revealed, particularly its often repeated threats of
الظالمين الظالمين,
the wrongdoers, and its severe expositions of calamities visited on the heavens and the earth, in punishment for their wrongdoing, through these and the retribution visited on the Ad and Thamud peoples and on Pharaoh. It draws attention to the unequaled wrongs of this century, and through the salvation of prophets like Abraham, peace be upon him, and Moses, peace be upon him, gives consolation to the oppressed believers. Indeed, all past time and the departed ages and centuries, which, in the view of heedlessness and misguidance, form a fearsome place of non-existence and a grievous, ruined graveyard. The Qur'an of miraculous exposition shows to every century and class of people, in the form of living instructive pages, strange worlds, living and endowed with spirits, and existent realms of the Sustainer which are connected with us. With an elevated miraculousness, it sometimes conveys us to those times, and sometimes brings those times to us, infusing with life the universe, which in the view of misguidance is lifeless, wretched, dead, and a limitless wasteland revolving amid separation and decline. With the same miraculousness, this same Qur'an of mighty stature raises to life those dead beings, makes them converse with one another as officials charged with duties and hasten to the assistance of one another. It instructs mankind, the jinn, and the angels in true, luminous, and pleasurable wisdom. For sure then it gains sacred distinctions, like there being 10 merits in each of its letters, and sometimes 100, 1,000, or thousands of merits. And if all men and jinn were to gather together, there being unable to produce the like of it, and it speaking completely appropriately with all mankind and all beings, and it's all the time being inscribed with eagerness in the hearts of millions of Hafizzis, and it's not causing weariness through its frequent and numerous repetitions, and despite its many obscure passages and sentences, it's being settled perfectly in the delicate and simple heads of children, and it's being agreeable, like Zamzam water, in the ears of the sick, the dying, and those distressed by a few words, and it's gaining for its students happiness in this world and the next. Its smoothness of style, which, observing exactly its interpreters being unlettered, allows for no bombast, artificiality, or affectedness, and its descending directly from the heavens, demonstrate a fine miraculousness. So too it shows a fine miraculousness in the grace and guidance of flattering the simple minds of ordinary people, the most numerous of the classes of men, through the condescension in its expression, and mostly opening the clearest and most evident pages, like the heavens and earth, and teaching the wondrous miracles of power and meaningful lines of wisdom beneath those commonplace things. By making known that it is also a book of prayer and summons, of invocation and divine unity, which require repetition, it demonstrates a sort of miraculousness through making understood in a single sentence and a single story, through its agreeable repetitions, numerous different meanings to numerous different classes of people. Similarly, by making known that the most minor and unimportant things in ordinary, commonplace events are within its compassionate view and the sphere of its will and regulation, it demonstrates a sort of miraculousness in attaching importance to even the minor events of the companions of the Prophet, in the establishment of Islam and codification of the Sharia, and both in those minor events being universal principles, and in the establishment of Islam and the Sharia, which are general, they're producing most important fruits, as though they had been seeds. With regard to repetition being necessary due to the repetition of need, the repetition of certain verses, which, as answers to numerous repeated questions over a period of 20 years, instruct numerous different levels of people, is not a fault. Indeed, to repeat certain sentences so powerful, they produce thousands of results and a number of verses, resulting from countless evidences, which describe an infinite, awesome, all-embracing revolution that, by destroying utterly the vast universe and changing its shape at doomsday, will remove the world and found the mighty hereafter in its place, and will prove that all particulars and universals from atoms to the stars are in the hand and under the disposal of a single being, and will show the divine wrath and dominical anger, on account of the result of the universe's creation, at mankind's wrongdoing, which brings to anger the earth and the heavens and the elements. To repeat such verses is not a fault, but most powerful miraculousness and most elevated eloquence, an eloquence and lucid style corresponding exactly to the requirements of the subject. For example, as is explained in the 14th flash of the Risale-i Nur, the sentence,
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate, which forms a single verse and is repeated 114 times in the Qur'an, is a truth that binds the divine throne in the earth and illuminates the cosmos, and of which everyone is in need all the time. If it was repeated millions of times, there would still be need for it. One needs and longs for it, not only every day like bread, but every moment like air and light. And for example, the verse,
إن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم.
and verily your sustainer is exalted in might, most compassionate, which is repeated 8 times in Surah Tasin-Mim, Quran chapter 26. Repeating on account of the result of the universe's creation, and in the name of universal dominicality, the salvation of the prophets whose stories are told in the surah, and the punishments of their peoples, in order to teach that dominical dignity requires the torments of those wrongdoing peoples, while divine compassion requires the prophet's salvation, is a concise, miraculous, and elevated miraculousness, for which, if repeated thousands of times, there would still be need and longing. And for example, the verse,
فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
then which of the favors of your sustainer will you deny? Quran, chapter 55, verse 13, etc., which is repeated in Surah Ar-Rahman, and the verse,
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
woe that day to the rejectors of truth. In Surah Al-Mursalat, Quran chapter 77, shout out threateningly to mankind and the jinn across the centuries and the heavens and the earth, the unbelief, ingratitude, and wrongdoing of those who bring the universe and the heavens and earth to anger, spoil the results of the world's creation, and deny and respond slightingly to the majesty of divine rule, and aggress against the rights of all creatures. If a general lesson thus concerned with thousands of truths and of the strength of thousands of matters is repeated thousands of times, there would still be need for it and its awe-inspiring conciseness and beautiful miraculous eloquence. And for example, the repetition of the phrase,
سبحانك يا لا إله إلا أنت الأمان الأمان خلصنا وأجرنا ونجنا من النار.
Glory be unto you, there is no God but you, mercy, mercy, save us, deliver us, preserve us from hellfire. In the supplication of the Prophet, peace be upon him, called Jawshan al-Kabir, which is a true and authentic supplication of the Qur'an and a sort of summary proceeding from it. Since it contains the greatest truth and the most important of the 3 supreme duties of creatures in the face of dominicality, the glorification and praise of God, and declaring him to be all holy, and the most awesome question facing mankind, man being saved from eternal misery and worship, the most necessary result of human impotence, if it is repeated thousands of times, it is still few. Thus, repetition in the Quran looks to principles like these. Sometimes on one page, even with regard to the requirements of the position and the need for explanation and the demands of eloquence, it expresses the truth of divine unity, perhaps 20 times explicitly and by implication. It does not cause boredom, but gives a power to it and inspires an eagerness. It has been explained in the Risale-i Nur with proofs how appropriate, fitting, and acceptable from the point of view of rhetoric are the repetitions in the Quran. The wisdom and meaning of the Meccan and Medinan surahs in the Quran of miraculous exposition being different in regard to eloquence, miraculousness, and detail and brevity is as follows. In Mecca, the first line of those it was addressing and those opposed to it were the Qurayshi idolaters and untaught tribesmen, so a powerful and elevated style in regard to rhetoric was necessary, and a miraculous, convincing, persuading conciseness. And in order to establish it, repetition was required. Thus, in most of the Meccan surahs, repeating and expressing the pillars of belief and degrees in the affirmation of divine unity with the most powerful, elevated, and miraculous conciseness It proved so powerfully the first creation and the resurrection, God, and the hereafter, not only in a single page, verse, sentence or word, but sometimes in a letter, through grammatical devices like inverting the words or sentences, making a word indefinite, and omissions and inclusions, that the geniuses and leaders of the science of rhetoric met it with wonder. The Risale-i Nur, and the 25th word, and its addenda in particular, which prove in summary 40 aspects of the Qur'an's miraculousness, and the Qur'anic commentary, Isharat al-Ijaz, from the Arabic Risale-i Nur, which in wondrous fashion proves the aspect of the Qur'an's miraculousness in its word order, have demonstrated in fact that in the Meccan surahs and verses are the highest styles of eloquence and the most elevated, concise miraculousness. As for the Medinan surahs and verses, since the first line of those they were addressing, who opposed them, were the people of the book, such as the Jews and Christians who affirmed God's existence, what was required by eloquence and guidance, and for the discussion to correspond to the situation, was not explanation of the high principles of religion and pillars of belief in a simple, clear, and detailed style, but the explanation of particular matters of the Sharia and its injunctions, which were the cause of dispute, and the origins and causes of secondary matters and general laws. Thus, in the Medinan surahs and verses, through explanations in a detailed, clear, simple style, in the matchless manner of exposition peculiar to the Qur'an, it mostly mentions within those particular secondary matters a powerful and elevated summary, a conclusion and proof, a sentence relating to divine unity, belief, or the hereafter, which makes the particular matter of the Sharia universal and ensures that it conforms to belief in God. It illuminates the passage and elevates it. The Risale-i Nur has proved the qualities and fine points and elevated eloquence in the summaries and conclusions, which express divine unity and the hereafter, and come mostly at the end of verses like
إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
Indeed, God is powerful over all things.
إن الله بكل شيء عليم.
Verily, God has knowledge of all things.
وهو العزيز الحكيم.
And He is the mighty, the wise.
وهو العزيز الرحيم.
And He is exalted in might, most compassionate. In explaining in the second beam of the second light of the 25th word, 10 out of the many fine points of those summaries and conclusions, it has proved to the obstinate that they contain a supreme miracle. Yes, in expounding those secondary matters of the Sharia and laws of social life, the Qur'an at once raises the views of those it addresses to elevated and universal points, and transforming a simple style into an elevated one, and instruction in the Sharia to instruction in divine unity. It shows it is both a book of law and commands and wisdom, and a book of the tenets of faith and belief, and of invocation and reflection and summons. And through teaching many of the aims of Quranic guidance in every passage, it displays a brilliant and miraculous eloquence, different to that of the Meccan surahs. Sometimes in 2 words, for example, in sustainer of all the worlds, and your sustainer, through the phrase, your sustainer, it expresses divine oneness, and through sustainer of all the worlds, divine unity. It expresses the divine oneness within divine unity. In a single sentence, even it sees and situates a particle in the pupil of an eye, and with the same verse, the same hammer, it situates the sun in the sky, making it an eye to the sky. For example, after the verse,
خلق السماوات والأرض.
Who created the heavens and the earth, following the verse,
يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل.
He merges the night into the day, and he merges the day into the night. Quran chapter 35, verse number 13. It says,
وهو عليم بذات الصدور.
and he has full knowledge of all that is in men's hearts. Quran chapter 35, verse number 38. It says, within the vast majesty of the creation of the earth and the skies, he knows and regulates also the thoughts of the heart. And through an exposition of this sort, transforms that simple and unlettered level and particular discussion, which takes into account the minds of ordinary people, into an elevated, attractive, and general conversation for the purpose of guidance. A question. Sometimes an important truth is not apparent to a superficial view, and in some positions the connection is not known when an elevated summary concerning divine unity or a universal principle is drawn from a minor and ordinary matter, and it is imagined to be a fault. For example, to mention the extremely elevated principle,
وفوق كل ذي علم عليم.
and over all endued with knowledge, one knowing. Quran, chapter 12, verse 76. When Joseph, peace be upon him, seized his brother through subterfuge, does not appear to be in keeping with eloquence. What is its meaning and purpose? The answer. In most of the long and middle-length surahs, which are each small Qur'ans, and in many pages and passages, not only 2 or 3 aims are followed, for, by its nature, the Qur'an comprises many books and teachings, such as being a book of invocation, belief and reflection, and a book of law, wisdom and guidance. Thus, since it describes the majestic manifestations of divine dominicality, and its encompassing all things, as a sort of recitation of the mighty book of the universe, it follows many aims in every discussion and sometimes on a single page. While instructing in knowledge of God, the degrees in divine unity, and the truths of belief, with an apparently weak connection, it opens another subject of instruction in the following passage, joining powerful connections to the weak one. It corresponds perfectly to the discussion and raises the level of eloquence. A second question. What is the purpose of the Qur'an proving and drawing attention to the hereafter, divine unity, and man's reward and punishment thousands of times, explicitly, implicitly and elusively, and teaching them in every surah, on every page and in every discussion? The answer. To instruct in the most important, most significant and most awesome matters in the sphere of contingency, and in the revolutions in the universe's history concerning man's duty, the means to his eternal misery or happiness, man who undertook the divine vicegerency of the earth, and to remove his countless doubts, and to smash his violent denials and obduracy, indeed to make man confirm those awesome revolutions and submit to those most necessary essential matters which are as great as the revolutions. If the Qur'an draws his attention to them thousands or even millions of times, it is not excessive, for those discussions in the Qur'an are read millions of times, and they do not cause boredom, nor does the need cease. For example, since the verses,
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير.
For those who believe and do righteous deeds are gardens beneath which rivers flow. Quran, chapter 85, verse 11. They will dwell therefore ever. Quran, chapter 5, verse 85, etc., show the truth of the good news of eternal happiness, which saves from the eternal execution of the reality of death, which every moment shows itself to wretched man, both himself and his world, and all those he loves, and gains for them an everlasting sovereignty. If it is repeated thousands of millions of times, and given the importance of the universe, it still is not excessive and does not lose its value. Thus, in teaching the innumerable, invaluable matters of this sort, and endeavoring to persuade, convince and prove the occurrence of the awesome revolutions which will destroy the present form of the universe and transform it as though it was a house, the Qur'an of miraculous exposition certainly draws attention to these matters thousands of times, explicitly, implicitly and allusively, and this is not excessive, but renews the bounty, which is like an essential need, the same as the essential needs of bread, medicine, air, and light are renewed. And for example, as is proved decisively in the Risale-i Nur, the wisdom in the Qur'an repeating severely, angrily and forcefully, threatening verses like,
إن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم.
For wrongdoers there is a grievous penalty. Quran chapter 14 verse 22.
والذين كفروا لهم نار جهنم.
But for those who reject God, for them will be the fire of hell. Quran chapter 35 verse 36. Is that man's unbelief is such a transgression against the rights of the universe, and most creatures, that it makes the heavens and earth angry, and brings the elements to anger, so that they deal blows on those wrongdoers with tempest and storm. According to the clear statement of the verses,
إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ.
And when they are cast therein, they will hear the terrible drawing in of its breath as it blazes forth, almost bursting with fury. Quran chapter 67 verses 7 and 8. Hell so rages at those iniquitous deniers that it almost disintegrates with fury. Thus, through the wisdom of showing, not from the point of view of man's smallness and insignificance before such a general crime and boundless aggression, the importance of the rights of the monarch of universe's subjects before the greatness of the wrongful crime, and the awesomeness of the unjust aggression, and the boundless ugliness in the unbelief and iniquity of those deniers. In accordance with the wisdom of showing this, if repeating in his decree most wrathfully and severely the crime and its punishment, thousands, millions, or even thousands of millions of times, it still would not be excessive, and a fault, because for 1,000 years thousands of millions of people have read such verses every day, not with boredom, but with complete eagerness and need. Indeed, every day, all the time for everyone, one world disappears and the door of a new world is opened to them. Through repeating, "There is no God but God," 1,000 times out of need, and with longing in order to illuminate each of those transitory worlds, it makes "there is no God but God" a lamp for each of those changing veils. In the same way, in accordance with the wisdom of appreciating through reading the Qur'an the penalties of those crimes and the severe threats of the pre-eternal monarch, which smash their obduracy, and of working to be saved from the rebellion of the soul, so as not to obscure in darkness those multiple, fleeting veils and renewed travelling universes, and not to make ugly their images, which are reflected in the mirrors of their lives, and not to turn against them those guessed views which may testify in favour of them. The Qur'an repeats them in most meaningful fashion. Even Satan would shudder at imagining to be out of place these so powerful, severe, and repeated threats of the Qur'an. It shows that the torments of hell are pure justice for the deniers who do not heed them. And for example, in repeating many times the stories of Moses, peace be upon him, which contain many instances of wisdom and benefits, like that of the staff of Moses, and of the other prophets, peace be upon them. It demonstrates that the prophethoods of all the other prophets are a proof of the veracity of the prophethood of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that one who does not deny all of them cannot in truth deny his messengership. For this purpose, and since everyone does not always have the time or capability to read the whole Qur'an, It repeats those stories in the same way as the important pillars of belief, in order to make all the long and middle-length surahs each like a small Qur'an. To repeat them, then, is not excessive. It is required by eloquence, and teaches that the question of Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the greatest question of mankind and the most important matter of the universe. It has been demonstrated decisively in the Risale-i Nur, with many proofs and indications that through giving the highest position to the person of Muhammad in the Qur'an, and including 4 pillars of belief in him, and holding the phrase, Muhammad is the messenger of God, equal to the pillar of there is no God but God, that the messengership of Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the greatest truth in the universe, and that the person of Muhammad is the most noble of creatures, and his universal collective personality and sacred rank, known as the Muhammadan truth, is the most radiant sun of the 2 worlds. His worthiness for this extraordinary position has also been proved. One of these proofs is this: according to the principle of the cause is like the doer, with the equivalent of all the good works performed by all his community at all times entering his book of good works, and the light which he brought illuminating all the truths of the cosmos, and is gratifying not only the jinn, mankind and animate beings, but also the universe and the heavens and earth, and the supplications of plants offered through the tongue of disposition, and the supplications of animals offered through the tongue of their innate need, and the righteous of his, peace be upon him, community, every day bequeathing to him their benedictions and supplications for mercy and spiritual gains, whose millions, and together with spirit beings even millions of unrejectable supplications are accepted, as we actually witness with our eyes. And since each of the 300,000 letters of the Qur'an yield from 100 to 1,000 merits, with infinite numbers of lights entering the book of his deeds, only with regard to the recitation of the Qur'an by all his community, the one all-knowing of the unseen saw and knew that the Muhammadan, peace be upon him, reality, which is his collective personality, would in the future be like a tuber tree of paradise. It was in accordance with that position that he gave him such supreme importance in the Qur'an, and in his decree showed the following of him, and receiving of his intercession through adhering to his illustrious sunnah to be one of the most important matters concerning man. And from time to time he took into consideration his human personality and human state in his early life, which was a seed of the majestic tuber tree. Thus, since the truths repeated in the Qur'an are of this value, all sound natures will testify that in its repetitions is a powerful and extensive miracle. Unless, that is to say, a person is afflicted with some sickness of the heart and malady of the conscience due to the plague of materialism, and is included under the rule.
قد ينكر المرء ضوء الشمس من رمد وينكر الفم طعم الماء من سقم.
Man denied the light of the sun due to disease of the eye. His mouth denied the taste of water due to sickness. Two additions, which form a conclusion to the 10th topic. The first, 12 years ago I heard that a most fearsome and obdurate atheist had instigated a conspiracy against the Qur'an, which was to have it translated. He said, the Qur'an should be translated so that everyone can know just what it is. That is, he hatched a dire plan with the idea of everyone seeing its unnecessary repetitions and its translation being read in its place. However, the irrefutable proofs of the Risale-i Nur prove decisively that a true translation of the Qur'an is not possible, and other languages cannot preserve the Qur'an's qualities and fine points in place of the grammatical language of Arabic. Man's trite and partial translations cannot be substituted for the miraculous and comprehensive words of the Qur'an, every letter of which yields from 10 to 1,000 merits. They may not be read in its place in mosques. Through spreading everywhere, the Risale-i Nur made the fearsome plan come to nothing. I surmise that it was due to the idiotic and lunatic attempts of dissemblers to extinguish the sun of the Qur'an on account of Satan by puffing at it like silly children having taken the lessons from that atheist, that I was inspired to write this 10th matter while under great constraint and in a most distressing situation. But I do not know the reality of the situation, since I have been unable to meet with others. Second edition. After our release from Denizli prison, I was staying on the top floor of the famous Shahir Hotel. The subtle and graceful dancing of the leaves, branches and trunks of the many poplar trees in the fine gardens opposite me at the touching of the breeze, each with a rapturous and ecstatic motion like a circle of dervishes, pained my heart, sorrowful and melancholy at being parted from my brothers and remaining alone. Suddenly, the seasons of autumn and winter came to mind, and a heedlessness overcame me. I so pitied those graceful poplars and living creatures swaying with perfect joyousness that my eyes filled with tears. With this reminder of the separations and non-being beneath the ornamented veil of the universe, the grief at a world full of deaths and separations pressed down on me. Then suddenly, the light, the Muhammadan, peace be upon him, truth had brought came to my assistance and transformed my grief and sorrow into joy. Indeed, I am eternally grateful to the Muhammadan being, peace be upon him, for the assistance and consolation which alleviated my situation at that time. Only a single instance of the boundless effulgence of that light for me, like for all believers and everyone. It was like this. By showing those blessed and delicate creatures to be without function or purpose, and their motion to be not out of joy, but as though trembling on the brink of non-existence and separation, and tumbling into nothingness, that heedless view so touched the feelings in me of desire for permanence, love of good things, and compassion for fellow creatures, and life that it transformed the world into a sort of hell, and my mind into an instrument of torture. Then, just at that point, the light Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had brought us a gift for mankind raised the veil. It showed in place of extinction, non-being, nothingness, purposeless, futility, and separations, meanings and instances of wisdom to the number of the leaves of the poplars, and as is proved in the Risale-i Nur, results and duties which may be divided into 3 sorts. The first sort looks to the all-glorious maker's names. For example, if a master craftsman makes a wondrous machine, everyone applauds him, saying, "What wonders God has willed! Blessed be God!" Similarly, the machine congratulates the craftsman through the tongue of its disposition, through displaying perfectly the results intended from it. All living beings and all things are machines, such as that. They applaud their craftsman through their glorifications. Like second, sort of the instances of wisdom looks to the views of living creatures and conscious beings. Beings each become an agreeable object of study, a book of knowledge. They leave their meanings in the sphere of existence in the minds of conscious beings, and their forms in their memories, and on the tablets in the world of similitudes, and in the notebooks of the world of the unseen. Then they depart from the manifest world and withdraw to the world of the unseen. That is, they leave behind an apparent existence but gain many existences pertaining to meaning, the unseen, and knowledge. Yes, since God exists and his knowledge encompasses everything, in the view of reality, in the world of believers, there is surely no non-being, extinction, nothingness, annihilation and transitoriness, while the world of unbelievers is full of non-existence, separation, nothingness and transience. This is taught by the saying, which is on everyone's lips. For those for whom God exists, everything exists. And for those for whom he does not exist, nothing exists. For them, there is nothing. In short, just as belief saves man from eternal annihilation at the time of death, so it saves everyone's private world from the darknesses of annihilation and nothingness. Whereas unbelief, and especially if it is absolute unbelief, both sends man and his private world to non-existence with death and casts him into infernal darknesses. It transforms the pleasures of life into bitter poisons. Let the ears ring of those who prefer the life of this world to that of the hereafter. Let them come and find a solution for this. Or else, let them embrace belief and be saved from these dreadful losses.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. Quran chapter 2, verse number 32. From your brother, who is in much need of your prayers and misses you greatly, Said Nursi. Conclusion. This forms a brief indication to a lengthy truth concerning a subtle point of miraculousness of great importance, which was imparted to me after sunset, and demonstrates clearly miraculous predictions of Surah
قل أعوذ برب الفلق
concerning the unseen.
قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Say, I seek refuge with the sustainer of the rising dawn from the evil of aught that he has created, and from the evil of the black darkness whenever it descends, and from the evil of blowers on knots, and from the evil of the envious when he envies. Quran, chapter 113, verses from 1 to 5. Commanding God's messenger, peace be upon him, and his community. Protect yourselves from the evil beings and Satans among jinn and men who strive in the universe on account of the worlds of non-being. This mighty, wondrous verse looks to all ages, and with its elusive meaning, looks more to our strange age, even explicitly, and calls on the Quran servants to seek refuge with God. This miraculous prediction about the unseen is here explained briefly in 5 signs, as follows. All the verses of this surah have numerous meanings. Only, in respect of their elusive meaning, they're repeating the word
شر
evil 4 times in 5 sentences is certainly guidance from the unseen in a way befitting the Quran's miraculousness, as is with a powerful relation, and in 4 ways they're pointing the finger with the same date to the 4 unparalleled, ghastly, stormy evils, material and immaterial, of this age, with its revolutions and clashes, and they're implicitly giving the command, withdraw from these. For example, the sentence,
قل أعوذ برب الفلق
say, I seek refuge with the sustainer of the dawn, coincides with the date 1352 or 1354, according to Abjad and Jafar. Reckoning alluding to the Second World War, which was brewing up, then erupted due to the prevalent ambition and greed of mankind, and the First War, and in effect, saying to the community of Muhammad, peace be upon him, do not enter this war, but seek refuge with your sustainer. With another of its elusive meanings, as a special favor to the Risale-i Nur students, who are servants of the Quran, it hints to them that they were to be saved around the same date from Eskişehir prison and an awesome evil, and that the plans to eliminate them would come to nothing. It was as though commanding them symbolically to seek refuge with God. And, for example, the sentence,
من شر ما خلق.
from the evil of aught that he has created, makes 1361, the doubled Ra is not counted, and points the finger through both the Rumi and Hijri dates at the cruel, tyrannical destruction of this unmatched war. Coinciding too with the Risale-i Nur students who work with all their strength to serve the Qur'an, being delivered from an extensive plan to eliminate them and from a grievous calamity in Denizli prison, it looks with an elusive meaning to them too. With a concealed sign it says, "Protect yourselves from the evil of creatures." And for example, making 1328 if the doubled letters are not counted, and 1358 if the doubled lam is counted, the sentence,
النفاثات في العقد.
the blowers on knots, coincides with the dates when, due their ambition and greed, the Europeans' tyrants who caused the 2 world wars, instigated a change of Sultan and the Balkan and Italian wars with the idea of spoiling the consequences of the constitutional revolution, which favored the Qur'an. Then, with the outbreak of the First World War, by the political diplomats blowing their evils, material and immaterial, and their sorcery and poison into everyone's heads through the tongue of the radio, and their inculcating their covert plans into the heart of human destiny. They prepared the evils that would savagely destroy 1,000 years of the progress of civilization, which corresponds exactly with the meaning of the blowers on knots. And for example, the sentence,
ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد.
and from the evil of the envious when he envies, makes 1347, the doubled Ra and Tanwin are not counted, and coincides exactly and corresponds in meaning with the significant upheavals which occurred in this country due to the enforced European treaties, and the changes that took place in this religious nation due to the oppression of philosophy, and the awesome envy, rivalry, and clashes in various countries which paved the way for the Second World War. These are surely flashes of this sacred surah's miraculous predictions concerning the unseen. A reminder: all Quranic verses have numerous meanings, and all the meanings are universal. They have significations in every century. Those discussed here are only its level of elusive meaning which looks to our century, and within that universal meaning our age is one signification. But it has gained particularity and looks to it and its date. These last 4 years I have known neither the stages of the war, nor its results, nor whether or not peace has been declared, and I have not asked, and so have not knocked on the door of this sacred surah to learn how many allusions it contains to this century and its wars. It has, however, been proved and explained in various parts of the Risale-i Nur, and especially in Rumuzat Semaniye, the 8 symbols, that this treasury contains many more mysteries, so referring readers to those, I'm cutting this short. The answer to a question that might occur to one: there is a sign indicating an extremely subtle relationship in this flash of miraculousness, in
من شر ما خلق.
from the evil of aught that he has created at the beginning, both
من
from and
شر.
the evil being counted, and in
ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد.
and from the evil of the envious when he envies, at the end, only the word
شر.
evil being counted, and
ومن.
from not being counted, and in neither of these words being counted in.
ومن شر النفاثات في العقد.
and from the evil of the blowers on knots. For there is good as well as evil in people, Hulk, and not all evil is visited on everyone. Alluding to this,
من
from and
شر
evil, which are partitive, are counted. But the envier is altogether evil when he envies, so there is no need for the partitive. And according to the allusion of
النفاثات في العقد
the blowers on knots, there is no need for the word evil to be counted here, for all the works of those casters of spells and sorcerer diplomats who have set the globe ablaze for their own benefits are pure evil. An addendum to a point about the miraculousness of this surah. Just as with 4 of its 5 sentences, this surah looks with its elusive meaning to the 4 largest evil revolutions and storms this century. So, with its elusive meaning, and according to Yafa reckoning, by its repeating 4 times the phrase,
من شر
from the evil of, the doubling is not counted. It looks to and points the finger at the century of the dissension of Genghis Khan and Hulagu, and the time of the fall of the Abbasid dynasty, which was the most fearsome calamity experienced by the Islamic world. Yes, without doubling,
شر
evil makes 500, and
من
from is 90. Numerous verses which look to the future, as well as Imam Ali, may God be pleased with him, and Garth al-Azam, may his mystery be sanctified, who alluded to both our century and those times in their predictions of the future, saw both our century and that century, and made predictions in exactly the same way, with
غاسق
making 1161 and
إذا وقب
making 810, the words
غاسق إذا وقب
look not to these times, but to the significant material and immaterial evils of those times. If they are counted together, they make 1971 and give news of some ghastly evil at that date. If the crops of the seeds of the present are not rectified, the blows will certainly be terrible. A supplement to the addendum of the 11th topic.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, the verse,
لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي
let there be no compulsion. In religion, truth stands out from error. From Quran, chapter 2, verse 256, which is the complement of the throne verse, makes 1350.
فمن يكفر بالطاغوت
Whoever renounces false gods makes 1929 or 1928,
ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك
and believes in God has grasped, makes 946, corresponding to the name Risale-i Nur.
بالعروة الوثقى
The most trustworthy handhold makes 1347.
لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم الله ولي الذين آمنوا
But that never breaks, and God is all-seeing, all-knowing. God is the protector of those who have faith. If counted together, makes 1012, and if not counted together, 945, with one doubling not being counted.
يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور
From the depths of darkness, he will lead them forth into the light, makes 1372, without doubling.
والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت
While those who do not believe, their patrons are, the evil ones, makes 1417.
يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات
From the light, they will lead them forth into the depths of darkness, makes 1,338. The doubling is not counted.
أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
They will be the companions of the fire, to dwell therein forever, makes 1,295. The doubling is counted. It was imparted to me that with their elusive meanings, these verses coincide exactly and twice with both the name of the Risale-i Nur and the form of its striving, and with the date the people of unbelief were attempting to extinguish the light of the world of Islam with the war of 1293, 1876 to 77, and with the date the terrible treaties were signed in 1338, taking advantage of the First World War, and in order to cast it into darkness, in fact. It was imparted to me too that light and darkness are repeatedly contrasted in these verses, and in this immaterial struggle, a light proceeding from the Qur'an's light would become a point of support for the people of belief. I was compelled to set this down in writing. Then I saw that the relationship of its meaning with this century was so powerful that even had there been no sign through the coincidences, I would still have been certain that these verses were speaking with us through their elusive meanings, just as they look to all centuries. Yes, firstly, the sentence at the beginning,
لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد.
let there be no compulsion. In religion, truth stands out from error, points through Abjad and Jafar, reckoning to the date 1350, if Rumi 1934, or if Hijri 1931, and through its elusive meaning says, by the matters of religion being separated from those of this world on that date, freedom of conscience, which is opposed to force and compulsion in religion, and to religious struggle, an armed jihad for religion, was accepted as a fundamental rule and political principle by governments, and this state became a secular republic. In view of this, jihad will be a non-physical religious jihad with the sword of certain affirmative belief, for it shows a flash of miraculousness, indicating that a light will emerge from the Qur'an, which will make known and set forth clearly proofs so powerful they will demonstrate almost visibly the guidance and truths of religion. Furthermore, as far as the word
خالدون,
to dwell therein forever, by repeating the contrast between light and darkness, and belief in darkness. The source and origin of all the comparisons in the Risale-i Nur, and just like them, is a concealed sign that a great hero in the contest of the spiritual jihad, Manevi jihad, at that date, is the Risale-i Nur, which bears the name of light, Nur. For its immaterial sword has solved hundreds of the mysteries of religion, leaving no need for physical swords. Yes, countless thanks be to God. For 20 years the Risale-i Nur has demonstrated this prediction, and flash of miraculousness, in fact. It is due to this mighty mystery that Risale-i Nur students do not interfere in the politics and political currents of the world and their material struggles, nor attach importance to them, nor condescend to any involvement with them. Its true students say to their most fearsome enemies in the face of their insults and aggression, "You wretch! I am trying to save you from eternal annihilation and to raise you from the basest and most grievous level of ephemeral animality to the happiness of immortal humanity, while you are working for my death and execution." Your pleasures in this world are very few and fleeting, and the penalties and torments you will suffer in the hereafter will be very great and very long-lasting. For me, death will be a discharge from duties. Go away. I am not going to bother with you. Do whatever you like. They feel not anger at their enemies, but pity and compassion. They try to reform them in the hope they shall be saved. Secondly,
ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى.
and believes in God, has grasped the most trustworthy handhold. These two sacred sentences have a powerful relationship, and according to abjad and jifr reckoning, the first corresponds exactly with the name Risale-i Nur, and the second corresponds in meaning. And according to jifr reckoning, with its being realized and perfected, and its brilliant conquests. These correspondences are an indication that this century at this date, the Risale-i Nur is a most trustworthy handhold, that is, it is an unbreakable chain of great strength, and a rope of God, hablullah. They inform through their elusive meanings that those who lay hold of it and cling onto it will be saved. Thirdly, both in meaning and according to jifr reckoning, the sentence,
الله ولي الذين آمنوا,
God is the protector of those who have faith, makes an allusion to the Risale-i Nur as follows. The curtain descended here, and permission was not given to write it. It has been postponed to another time. Footnote: the reason permission was not given to write the remainder of this point for now is that it touches on politics in this world, and we are prohibited from considering such things. Yes, the verse,
إن الإنسان ليطغى,
man is indeed overweening, Quran chapter 96 verse number 6, looks to this tagut and draws attention to it.